What do you think embodies the spirit of a martial artist?
It's consistency. It's the discipline behind it all. So when you start working more with discipline and consistency, it starts to show up in other areas of your life, right? So I found getting back into jiu-jitsu for me was probably one of the most beneficial things that I could have done in my life, especially at the time too, right? When I got back into it, there was a lot of anxiety, there was a lot of depression. I had already worked myself out of that area, but I needed something to kind of really, steal the deal. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not really sure how else to describe it. And that's when my wife she told me, she goes, you need to get back to it. So I looked at a few gyms. I went to this one, and this one really panned out because it's the closest gym to me.
Yeah.
So having that, I got the kids right involved. You know, it works for after-school programs and whatnot. But at the same time, as soon as I got in, I became obsessed again. I was going 5-6 days a week. Like, I was doing Monday to Saturday. And I was hitting pretty much every class, the early and the late, plus the sparring in between. Like, I just went crazy on it. And I'm not going to lie, I'm sore. Like, I'm sore all the time.
Yeah.
I'd rather feel sore than hungover, though.
Hi, guys. Welcome to the Mind, Body, and Spirit podcast. I'm your host, Itai Aran, and on this podcast, we discuss ways to develop ourselves in mind, body, and spirit with different guests specializing in different fields from all walks of life. Enjoy. Hi guys, welcome to the Mind, Body, Spirit podcast. I'm your host, Itai Aran, and today I'm joined by Alex Belleau, aspiring professional jiu-jitsu fighter. Alex, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Oh man, it's a pleasure. So, the world of jiu-jitsu, pretty crazy world, huh?
It's a fun one.
How long have you been doing it?
I've been back in for a couple of years. I've been doing martial arts pretty much my entire life. Started off with Aikido when I was a kid. Been always kind of steady with the jiu-jitsu ever since I was in my teens. But I was taken out for quite some time, actually, just from school and life and whatnot. So now I've been back consistently at it for almost 2 years now, and it's been a hell of a lot of fun.
Yeah, man. Oh my God. Like, to train in fighting, but then to actually compete in the sport, like, when there's striking and there's injuries and there's literal, like, chance of, like, not just like, oh, I rolled my ankle or I dislocated this or tore that,
elbow,
it's like
shoulder.
The mission of that sport is to either submit or knock out your opponent.
Yeah,
right?
well, submit
not
or
in
strangle,
jiu-jitsu,
right?
but strangle,
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, there's no striking involved, thank God. I was thinking about going into boxing, actually, when I was trying to get back into martial arts, but that was kind of the deciding factor for me. I didn't want to get punched in the head anymore.
You know what?
I'm not young anymore.
Reason,
I'm
right?
36 years old. The recovery takes a lot longer. This is something that's a bit more, test my body a little bit differently and, you can go all out, but you don't actually have the same repercussions as if, you're going to take a punch in the face.
Here's an interesting question for you. Someone who's looking to take jiu-jitsu for self-defense, right? And one who's looking to inflict pain and submit his opponents. One is on the attacking side and wants to really submit someone. Yeah. And the other one is more of a defensive sort of individual and is taking it more for that aspect.
Yeah.
Do you find they grapple differently? Do they?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Well, like there's different guys that play different games, right? Like me myself, I'm a larger guy, so they always told me in the gym I was a bit of a bull rusher. I'm always trying to hunt people down, just always power, drive. And then you got other guys that play the more defensive game, like you're saying, right? They're more guard pullers and stuff like that. They'll play more from the guard, play from their back, and they'll submit you that way.
Is there a percentage or is it depends on the fighter?
Yeah, I think it really kind of depends on the fighter, because then even then too, right? You have personality differences. You know what kind of works better for them as opposed to other people. Smaller guys tend to fill the holes a lot easier. So that's kind of the really cool thing about jiu-jitsu too, is that the whole theory behind it is that the smaller person, if trained properly, should be able to win, should be able to take out the bigger guy.
Like
right?
Royce Gracie, right, in that big tournament, right, where he submitted
Dan
all the big guys, right, and that's when Brazilian jiu-jitsu really became what it was, right?
Yeah.
It was shown to the world, right?
Oh yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah.
Well, actually, when I was out beginning of the year, January. That's right. I had leg surgery. The varicose veins I got removed from my leg, and that entire time I was off, I started watching the old UFCs. I went right back to #1 and watched that fight. Yeah. And that was so cool.
Unreal.
Like watching the evolution of the sport, because I think I'm up to, like, from scratch, I think I'm up to about UFC 27 or 28. Like, I watch all the new ones. And
yeah.
But it's so cool watching those first few years and seeing how it actually developed, how they brought in the different weight classes and the times and the point system. And
when I was really heavily invested in watching that, I was watching like BJ Penn, Lyoto Machida, Junior Dos Santos. Like that was Meyer George St. Pierre, right?
Yeah, that was my time too. It was cool. Those were the days.
John Jones before he kept getting.
And now everybody that comes into it, they're just nuts.
I know,
like,
right?
You see some of these fighters, and even the kids that you see in jiu-jitsu nowadays. Like I've seen some of the other schools, and like we've got really, really good competitors at our school as well too. Like for them, I'm talking for the kids.
Yeah.
But you see this difference in how they're able to interpret information now and what they learn, like what they can learn to do with their bodies at such a young age. It's crazy the things they can do now.
Literally. Yeah. And jiu-jitsu is at the forefront of that, right? Because it doesn't matter how good of a striker you are, how strong you are, right? If they can get you to the ground, and they can find a way to submit you because you don't even know what's going on while you're down there. And
that's the thing, 80% of the time the fight's going to the ground.
Yeah.
So if you know what to do on the ground,
Khabib and Conor is a perfect example of that, right? Conor was a gifted striker, like an amazingly gifted striker, especially on the come up, right?
Yeah.
And Khabib, doesn't matter, got him to the ground and
that's
it.
And then he just had his way with him.
Right? Yeah.
I mean, a guy like Conor McGregor, if you can make it, I almost swore there. If you can put that guy in his place, you're doing something right.
Exactly.
Right? Like he's no slouch.
But let's get a little back on track. I just want to give the audience like a nice dive into the sport and a little bit about our passions for it, right?
Absolutely.
But tell me, how many tournaments have you competed in yourself?
I think I've done 6 now, just starting last year. I started last year, I think it was April with the Ontario Open. I started the no-gi competition, and actually I lost that one first round. I lost by an advantage. I couldn't get the guy to the ground. Yeah. It was a total
What was stopping you? Like
him.
Yeah.
He was honestly what it was, and like I think I've got video playback for it somewhere too. The guy tripoded, so I was just trying. And basically, what I mean by that is just we were locked up. We've got our collar sleeve grips or whatever it is that we have going on at the time, and he just put his legs back as far as he could. So any advance that I tried to make, I couldn't grab anything. I couldn't take his back. He was just constantly keeping me at a distance. So I tried to overpower him, bring him through, but he ended up getting to a bit more of a dominant position. Didn't get the points for it, but he got the advantage, and he ended up winning that round. So that was my first go at a jiu-jitsu tournament, and didn't quite go the way I was hoping. But you know what? I learned a lot even from that.
And that's the mentality thing, right? That's like to learn and go in with the spirit of like you're always constantly learning, and even if you win or you don't, but you're learning more and getting that experience.
My first go at it was more so like I didn't really care about if I won or not. If I did, that would have been sweet, but it was just data collection for me. I wanted to feel what the difference in energy was.
Yeah.
Like, because I roll with guys every day. Right? Like I'm constantly on the match training. So when I do, like when I went into a situation like that, it's like, what's the real difference? And there definitely is. But it's more so in your own head. And you got to think too, if you're feeling that, your competitor's probably feeling that as well.
100%.
Something similar.
So you're talking about how much you train and how much you try to like push that muscle memory to its maximum potential, right? So that when you get in those situations, your body just remembers what to do, right?
Yeah.
So now tell us, like when you are in that fight and you're in those situations, does your body act on its own? Do you remember all that training, or is it that fight or flight response kicks in?
A bit of both. Yeah, it's a little bit of combination of all of that. When I fight, I try to have fun with it. So I'm always trying to, like in my gym, they call me the Happy Face Killer. I love that nickname. I've never been one for nicknames before. So when I heard that, I'm like, that's pretty dope.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah, and they always told me because like when I came in, it was like I said, right? It was always that strength, it was that energy, it was that push, and they wanted to be like, yo, you need to slow down. But I always look so happy about always smiling and just looking at everybody. Hey, that was a great time.
Yeah.
So eventually,
and that's the right mentality for a fighter to have, right? You can't be so angry if you get hit or if you get submitted, right?
You're going to lose.
Take it in stride and grow from it. That's what everyone and all our audiences listening should really take from that. Okay.
Yeah, the biggest thing, actually, that probably is the biggest thing you should take from that is that when you're in a situation like that, especially in the gym, because you got guys that come into the gym, and even then, like this is a place to learn new things. This is a place to try stuff out, and you're going to fail. But you've always got those guys that come in and they don't want to lose because they don't like to lose. But are you really losing? Like, are
you really learning if you're not allowing yourself to lose?
Exactly.
Grow, right?
You have to lose if you want to learn. You have to go through that trial and error.
Take us through what a regular day of training looks like for you.
A full day or just the training aspect? The training aspect.
Take us through the training aspect.
Yeah,
I know nutrition's involved. I know there's recovery involved. We've been over a lot of specialists on this show, and that is definitely something we're going to get into soon. But take us through what your jiu-jitsu training looks like.
Well, I normally get about 2 to 3 hours in. when I get to the gym, there's that first warm up, and that's good just to get the blood flowing, and then we go into drills. So my coach typically isolates like a specific move or a specific sequence that he wants to work on. And the majority of it is really, it's kind of learning what works best for you. So they give you a few different options of what you can play with, and just, see what works and what doesn't, right? Usually you get about half hour to an hour of that. And then after that, we go to rolls. And that's fun, but it's also still a good time to get more drilling in then too. But it depends on what you're doing, right? If you're working on your cardio or you're working on your skill, right? So if you're working on your cardio, like I like to go as many rounds as I can. You usually do about 5-6 minute rounds, a minute in between. I think my record right now is 9-10 rounds back to back. That's tough.
It is. In terms of cardiovascular and how you go through your rounds and such, what people need to know is that when you are fighting, the cardio requirements are much, much higher than in most sports, because your adrenaline is through the roof, because you are in fight or flight, and you are understanding that someone is being aggressive towards you, whether it's sport or not. So it's way more taxing on your central nervous system.
Oh, 100%.
And you need that extra cardio training. You need to be able to do those 5-10 rounds, like you said, your record, right? Because the demands of this sport are so much higher.
And the thing is too, like when I first started training again, you have to relearn everything, right? Like the sport has changed, the basics haven't, but something as simple as breathing. Like you're saying, when you have that fight or flight instinct going about you have that anxiety, you have that adrenaline pumping through your veins, like you need to have that breath work behind you. So when I started getting back into it, my biggest goal at first was actually to be able to hear the music that's playing in the background. They've always got music playing during rolling, and it's really, really fun. Like I love that. You get a little bit of hip hop going, kind of set the mood. Sometimes they put
love that when they do boxing.
Yeah,
so
right?
Going,
I get a little Wu-Tang going, protect your neck. But yeah, so like when we're doing that, that's what I'm always trying to focus on, is to be able to actually hear the song, so that way I know what's going on, and I'll end up singing while I'm rolling with people. Like they're kind of laughing because I'm sitting there taking their back, and they're like, "Why are you whispering in my ear?" It's like, get out of here! Shh.
It's over now.
Go to sleep.
Go to sleep.
Yeah, so that's kind of always the goal for me, right? And
yeah.
Whenever people, especially if I'm working with new people, like, what do I do? How do I get here? Who cares? Your whole goal is to figure out how your body works right now. But if you can tell me what song we were listening to at the end of the round, I think you won. All right, you did okay.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
it's a great tip.
Yeah, it's just you want to have fun with it.
Yeah,
that's what the Gracies always tried to do. Like, yeah, they were trying to make their jiu-jitsu army and all of that, but at the end of the day, they always said you have to make jiu-jitsu fun. Yeah. If you're not having fun, then what's the point?
It's anything, right? It's anything in life. If you have fun with what you're doing, if you have passion, then you're going to want to do it. You're going to want to
do it so much more.
You're going to want to get better at it because you're in love with what you're doing, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
it's amazing. It's cool.
Tell us about your best bout. What fight did you feel like you did everything right?
Everything right?
Or as much as possible.
I've got
There's never
none
right.
for you.
I know, but everything right by your standards of like comparisons to older fights, let's say, like, or newer fights, doesn't matter. You think about this fight and you're like, I'm very happy with my performance in this fight.
Well, I would say I don't know if I have a specific fight that I think was my best in particular. There are ones that I do enjoy more, and those are always the ones where I have more movement. I like being able to get on my back more so now, because I'm not typically a person that does work from their back. I always get overcrowded, and then I kind of get a little bit complacent, I guess, in that sense, right? More training required.
Exactly.
But I always have fun when I'm able to get onto my back and I'm able to keep them at bay, keep a little bit of distance between us, so I can start putting in like a knee shield or whatever, start cutting my angles, and you usually get the reversal from it. Those are always fun, but my favorite matches are the ones where I get good movement in. So if I manage to get them into a turtle and I can kind of float around them a little bit, kind of change sides on them, try to get my hooks in different ways, and just kind of confuse them. When I get that confused look on their face, it's like, okay, that's a good day.
Yeah. They actually say that a lot of martial artists teach to not have facial expression, whether you feel like you're in a bad situation.
Like a poker face.
Exactly, you can't, because if you give your opponent anything, there you go. And it's even a motivation thing, right?
Oh,
even if you're not
100%.
showing them an opening, but you're showing them the stress in their facial expression, you have them.
And that's the thing right there, actually. So one of my more recent ones, I did the ADCC Canada, and my first competitor, I can't remember his name right now, I apologize, but it was funny. So when you start your match off, obviously you're at a neutral position, you got your wrestler's stance, everyone's kind of getting a little closer together, and I went for that first collar tie. And what happened was the adrenaline, I think, got me a little bit too much.
Yeah.
I slapped him so hard right on the neck. Like, he looked at me, arms in the air. Like, bro. I'm like, yeah, I took a step back, right? I'm like, yeah, no, you're 100% right, my bad. But as soon as I did that, and they resumed the match, my coach was like, he's pissed off, go get him. Yeah. And that's the thing, right? You're talking about that poker face. If somebody can see that, they'll capitalize on it.
So and that taunting really helps in that, eh?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, and getting them going.
Yeah, 100%. He ended up losing that round, I think, more than anything because of his nerves, because he got angry. Once I got him to the ground, I just steamrolled him. I just slowly kind of turned him over, grabbed his back, got the rear naked choke with the belly down on him too. Like, that's
I love that we're talking about your glory and your amazing matches, and this one that felt so right. But I'm going to ask you the opposite question.
Yeah, 100%.
What was your worst bout in recollection?
Worst bout was my actual. My most recent one, so that was the Ontario Open. I did that the week following ADCC. So it's funny, 1 week I get the first place, brought home the gold.
Amazing.
And then the second one, or the week following rather, I don't even place. So there were 8 guys in our.
For that? Yeah.
Well, I got outmatched, and that was it, right? My buddy at my gym, he knew the guy that I was competing with, and he told me he was a big wrestler. He's like, he's got really good snap downs. He's got really good this, really good that, right? He knows how to work the ground, and he did. He did exactly what my buddy that I said he was going to do. He took me to the ground, and he just smothered. I got put into a half guard position, an area that I didn't have a lot of training with. I've been focusing a lot more on that now. To kind of work on more submissions and reversals from that point, and that way I've got a bit more know-how in that situation. But when you're working from like deep half guard, again, like I said, they take up too much of your room, right? So it's, do you know what deep half guard is?
Elaborate.
Okay, so basically if I'm on my back and I've got one leg between theirs, the other leg hooked around, so I've got their one leg trapped. They've still got one leg open, and then I'm trying to get any posts in that I can do to create more space, or however it is I want to manipulate them. What he did was I got the half guard on him, but he slid right up, so he took up all my space. He was basically chest to chest on me, and I had no room to get a hand in, an arm in, get a leg in anywhere. I couldn't keep him off of me.
Gotcha.
And then eventually he took my back. But here's the kicker for it. So you always got to turn a negative into a positive.
Oh, I didn't even need to prompt you for that. Yeah.
So by far one of the funner ones, and I'm going to get in trouble for this one day, I have a feeling. But not what I'm about to say, but what I did in the competition. So this guy's working, and he ends up taking my back, like I said, right?
Yeah.
And he's trying to set up the rear naked choke.
Yeah.
But he's gassed. He's so gassed. And he gets his arm around the neck and starts to work it underneath the chin. And I look at the clock. I'm like, because there's no way I'm coming back. I think the guy was up like 15-0 on me.
Oh my God.
Just destroyed me in points. But I'm like, bro, you got 20 seconds left. You got to finish this. And he goes, what? I'm like, you got to finish this. You got to start pulling. He goes, I can't. I'm like, pull harder. Let's go. And the ref's sitting there laughing at us. He's like, you're not supposed to be talking to him. Like, yeah, I know, but you know what? I'm already losing the match. I may as well have some fun with it, right? He finished the 20-second finished, didn't get the choke out on me. He couldn't sub me, and he just sits right up. He starts laughing. He's like, I've never experienced that in a match before. That was so much fun.
I see you earned your nickname, Happy Face Killer.
That's it, man. I don't care. Like, I don't care if I lose. Obviously, I want to win.
Yeah.
But I don't care if I lose.
And that's perfect segue to what I want to ask. What do you think embodies the spirit of a martial artist?
It's consistency. It's the discipline behind it all. So when you start working more with discipline and consistency, it starts to show up in other areas of your life, right? So I found getting back into jiu-jitsu for me was probably one of the most beneficial things that I could have done in my life, especially at the time too, right? When I got back into it, there was a lot of anxiety, there was a lot of depression. I had already worked myself out of that area, but I needed something to kind of really, steal the deal. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not really sure how else to describe it. And that's when my wife she told me, she goes, you need to get back to it. So I looked at a few gyms. I went to this one, and this one really panned out because it's the closest gym to me.
Yeah.
So having that, I got the kids right involved. You know, it works for after school programs and whatnot. But at the same time, as soon as I got in, I became obsessed again. I was going 5-6 days a week. Like, I was doing Monday to Saturday, and I was hitting pretty much every class, the early and the late, plus the sparring in between. Like, I just went crazy on it. And I'm not going to lie, I'm sore. Like, I'm sore all the time.
Yeah.
I'd rather feel sore than hungover, though.
You know what? It's literally amazing that you say that, because we had a aspiring bodybuilder, professional bodybuilder, sorry about that, on the show last week, and he said the same thing about bodybuilding, that this sport saved his life and took him away from a very dark path and a very dark conclusion that he had for himself in his mind. And it's amazing to see how people have different passions and different outlets, and everything can give people solace and peace of mind if they love it truthfully, right? So
absolutely.
Say it.
And that's the thing too with men nowadays. There's a lot of, everybody talks about toxic masculinity and stuff like that, and that's good. Like there is absolute merit to all of that. But I think a lot of that is because guys they've lost their hobbies, right? You got a lot of construction workers and stuff like that. Like I work in construction, and you got a lot of guys that just go back to the house and drink. And then like they'll drink a 6-pack, they'll drink a 12-pack, and then they go to bed.
A lot of people would rather like push their demons down with substance or with whatever it is that they need to do, right? And like you said, right, toxic masculinity, we're told that being a little bit aggressive, being whatever male is, right, is wrong in some circles, not everybody. Of course, there is a happy middle ground that we should all strive for men and women to, get along and express ourselves. But
who was it? Was it Jordan Peterson? I'm gonna mess this up for sure.
It's okay.
I think it was Jordan Peterson that had said that. He says, you don't want to be the weak man, right? Because a weak man is just he's no good. He doesn't contribute to society. He doesn't help out. You know what I'm talking about, right? It's the one that can inflict pain. It's the one that can do those things to you.
You'd rather be a warrior.
I would rather be a warrior and choose not to fight than be a coward and not be able to prevent it.
I think the quote goes, I'd rather be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. Something like that. Something along those lines. I don't think those were his words. Those are not the exact words, but that's the thing. Like, you'd rather be able to inflict pain and choose not to.
Well, knowing that you can protect your own.
Yeah, exactly.
It's being able to protect property, protect self, protect the ones you love.
Exactly.
Right?
You have to have the ability to protect, and rather not have any ability at all, just hope for the best.
And the coolest thing I find about training in general, like whether it's, in the gym, preferably, combat sports and stuff like that, is that the more you learn how to fight, the less you want to.
Yeah.
Right? It's maybe not in a sense of like you want to go train, sure. But you have no ambition, no desire, no anything about you that wants to go pick a fight outside the gym.
So there's...
I don't know if it's because you're too tired or what.
There's a thing about Stoic philosophy, and in like the Roman Empire and all that, that the biggest generals and like really seasoned war veterans, not like young, ambitious young men that wanted to make a name for themselves in war, that really saw the darkest sides of humanity, had no inclination to start any fight or kill or cause any harm, unless they were a sociopath, right? Which they were in history, right?
A lot of them didn't even want the job, the position.
It was just like they know what we're capable of, and they feared what we could do to innocence, and they were like,
somebody has to step
only
in.
Under like emperor's direct orders would they do it.
Yeah. That's it's the first gym when I got into traditional martial arts. They had the Japanese symbol Bu, and I hope I'm saying that right. But anyways, it means peace through conflict. That's how they always interpreted it to me, and that's how I always kind of kept it in my mind. I ended up getting the tattoo of it on my arm there when I left. I left because of college, right? And I think that's the big mentality for guys back there, or back then rather. It's the ones that wanted to do it wouldn't be good at it because they're in it for different gain.
Yeah.
The ones that didn't want to do it at all, wanted nothing to do with it, were always the ones that were the best for the job. Right? That's like one of those classic sayings. I know I'm saying it wrong, but whatever.
No, it's 100%. That's how Marcus Aurelius, one of the wise kings or wise emperors of Rome, was chosen by the Senate, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And he didn't want the job, but he was the best one for the job.
Exactly, and that's where you listen to his meditations and everything. Now you can see the type of person, the type of caliber he actually was, or at least get an idea.
You know what's the most amazing thing about that is, like, I've read his meditations, and it was to himself, right?
Yeah.
Like
this is just journal entries for him. That's all they were.
And look how much it could extend to all of us, right? And how truly wise he was, that he was
not only that,
everything. Yeah.
How prevalent it is still today.
Oh,
actually, even more so.
Well, human
today.
nature doesn't change, right?
No, it doesn't.
That doesn't change.
Yeah, technology might, the world around you might, but the psyche.
How we're wired doesn't. No.
Yeah, that always stays pretty consistent.
All right, Alex, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, brother.
For partaking your wisdom to us and teaching us about jiu-jitsu and the spirit of jiu-jitsu and the spirit of martial arts. And we can't wait to have you on the show again.
Yeah, man. Hopefully that was good, and looking forward to it.
All right, buddy.
Appreciate it.
Take care.